Welcome to All Villa, No Filler. Remember to subscribe to the show. Today, I welcome back AVFC London Lions member and a good friend of mine, lifelong Aston Villa fan, Adam Tynan. This is the first episode in a scouting special series, which we try to do every pre-season. Adam's going to talk us through a few players he'd like Villa to look at in the transfer window. Before we start, I've got to say, you have absolutely smashed it out the park in previous years when we've done this. Players who weren't massively well known, who have then gone on to become household names here or in other parts of Europe. So I'm looking forward to seeing who you have lined up here, Adam. But before we get to your first pick, I guess we might as well just mention, what have you made of Aston Villa's summer so far? Not a lot going on, is there?
No, I was going to say, what do you want me to comment on there? There's not a lot to talk about, is there? Yeah, I think we're all starting to get a little bit nervous about what the ramifications of this financial shenanigans are. The feeling, I guess, amongst those being pessimistic maybe are that we're going to have to sell to buy. The profile of players is going to be kind of lower, so to speak, than it has been in previous summers. The squad is going to be smaller than it was in the Champions League season. And I guess there's just real uncertainty about what we're going to be able to do. I think that would be fine, except other teams that were in and around us and lower than us seem to be making some pretty smart moves. I called Kudus back in the Ajax days, and I think he'll be good for Spurs. I'm worried about that. They might start to catch up with a good manager, and a few whispers that maybe that we might talk about actually today of big players moving to traditionally not so big clubs. That worries me a little bit. But in Emery we trust.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's worth remembering we do have a very strong squad, but I assume over the next few weeks there's going to be some ins and outs. There's going to be some things changing, and I think SCR seems to be the thing that really is looming over us for the next year. So we'll see how we go with that. But clearly Monchi is listening. Clearly he's watching. Clearly you watched us last year when you called Lucho Gertruida, and that was a player that then Villa were linked with for about a month and a half. So this year, what positions have you looked at for us?
I've looked at, funny you say let's get Schroeder, because I think that's probably still a slot we haven't quite filled. We brought Dizazian on loan, so I've looked at a centre back, similar profile to what we looked at last time, somebody a bit more ball dominant, so to speak, in amongst what we've got. Probably Mings is our example of that, but I've looked at right-sided ball dominant centre backs. I've looked at a right back, a little bit of talk. I mean, I guess it's been a long time of Villa fans thinking that Matty Cash is the player that we might upgrade to improve. Right wingers, there's a little bit of talk about Bailey going out the door, drop off in performance from 2 seasons ago to last season now. And then last but not least, an area I've not strayed into before is goalkeeper. Again, with the sort of whispers of what's going on there, and maybe Martinez is leaving. How do we replace such a dominant character in our 11? So I've looked at that as well.
Great stuff. All right, well, looking forward to hearing it. So, right, where should we start? Centre back?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's
cool.
do it.
All right. So, who have you got lined up for us?
So I've done a little bit more than I probably have in previous years. I probably should say right now my annual warning that this is utter woke nonsense and it's data led, and I haven't been like the old school scouts watching thousands of minutes of players in the pouring rain. This is just, and anytime I say eye test, rest assured that I mean a 5 minute long YouTube highlights clip, rather than anything beyond that. I've got 3 potential names lined up. There's a couple. In fact, I revised this late last night as Malick Thiaw came back onto the market. It looked like he was moving to Como from AC Milan, 25 million euros. If he is available at the last minute, I think he could be a potentially really good signing. This time last year, we ruled out Ousmane Diomande of Sporting Lisbon as being out of our price bracket and possibly going somewhere bigger, so I didn't include him ahead of Gertruida, even though I would have done. Whispers that he's getting close to a Crystal Palace move. So if that's doable, can Villa muster up the finances to do that? And then last but not least, a lad called Leonardo Balerdi from Marseille. Possibly a slightly cheaper, slightly older, more for the now option. To if the other two end up being, again, it pains me to say this, out of our price bracket, but in Crystal Palace's, then maybe he will offer that. What I've looked at across centre backs is I think we really need uh, an aerial presence. Mings does that a lot, but across the team beyond him, we're not fantastic in our aerial win percentages and the amount of sort of crosses that we defend well and long balls that we defend well. And then passing, because progressive passing is a big part of what most teams do now, but absolutely what Emery does now. And then last but obviously not least, when you're talking about defenders, although it seems to take a backseat a lot of the time, kind of tackling interceptions, tackle percentage, and errors leading to shots on goal.
Mhm.
So, how do you want to start? Aerial ability?
Yeah, let's go with that. Something that Villa have been somewhat got a bit better last season, but the season before, God, we were seeing a lot of goals from that, weren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So, to sort of land that point, you've got Konsa and Power probably have been our starting centre back preferred partnership, you would say. They're winning less than one aerial duel per game.
Right.
0.95 for Konsa, zero point 0.8 for Power. Mings shoots up to 2.18 when he's in the squad, so you can already see like the big difference he makes to winning those sorts of challenges.
Wow.
Across the three that I looked at, Leonardo Balerdi, the slightly cheaper option, would be at 1.54. Diomande and Malick Thiaw are big units. What I really like about both of these guys is they're tall, they're physical, they're athletic, they're quick. And their rates go up to 2.79 joules one and 2.44, and winning them at a really high rate as well. So 67% and 65% respectively of the joules they're going up for, they're winning. Compare
Right.
that to poor old Power, who's winning only 38% of the joules he's involved with. And I think it's fair to say he's trying not to get involved with them as well the best he can.
Yeah.
So any of these players, I think, would be a huge improvement in that part of the field. And it gives, I think with centre back, we're looking at options, right? Rotating horses for courses, the way we did a little bit with Mings.
Yeah.
There's probably games last year where fans felt like, oh, well, maybe we should have gone with Mings there because we got a bit done physically. And this would give you more options for that in the right centre back role to sort of pair with Konsa at right back or replace Konsa in right centre back.
Right. Okay. That's yeah, worth it thinking about because I did a squad assessment a month ago or so, and it just came back to the same things as last season. Right centre back up with Konsa was an issue, and it just feels like Konsa himself actually needs competition as well,
Mhm.
because there is a danger, that he could sometimes. I know he just knows he's going to start, so it helps players when they have competition, and I think you're right. I think sometimes watching Villa in the last year or two, there have been games where, I think maybe Nottingham Forest away, where sometimes when the opposition team just, you know, changes brings on a sub, changes it up, goes a bit more direct. Villa can sometimes be very slow to react. And I sometimes think that can be from the back. It's like somebody needs to start screaming and shouting. And Mings is that player, but Konsa and Powell aren't necessarily that type of a personality. And to have somebody who, again, a bit more, you know, aerial dominant, physical, strong, can come in and do the job would be very, very helpful to Villa. But as well, but with the way Emery plays, they got to be good on the ball as well, haven't they?
Absolutely. So that's sort of, yeah, the next thing I looked at was passing, and what I included in that was pass completion, progressive passes, long pass completion, and shot creating actions. Now, I think we probably all think that that's kind of Power's job from the back, bring the ball out, maybe carry it past a player and pick a pass. I actually think Conser's pass completion is very good as well, tends to be shorter, but doesn't lose the ball particularly. That's not something that I think we can afford to sacrifice. It would be tempting to go for a big unit who doesn't really pass it and gives it to Power, but that doesn't work with the way modern football is played, right? Everyone needs to be able to do it. So for comparison's sake, Constance at 92.9% pass completion. All of these have averaged above that in the last season, 93 plus. In terms of progressive passing, our standout is Power, 4.3 per match. Balerdi gets pretty close, 4.15. Malick Thiaw higher at 4.43. I would say Usman Diamande is a bit more of a ball progressor running it. He's at 3 sort of progressive passes per 90. But yeah, the standout there would be Malick Thiaw, I would say. Long passes, I think, is interesting and important. There's a lot of talk about kind of that tiki-taka small pass, open up space. but have started to see more and more teams threaten with that slightly longer ball. I guess Man City have been doing it for a long time. When we come to look at goalkeepers, Ederson's a pretty effective shot creating actions man, which sounds insane, but
Mhm.
he is good at that. So I wanted to look at long pass completion as well to have that threat. Howe is completing 6.6 at a sort of 53% success rate,
Mhm.
which is solid enough, but all three of these would improve on that. So our best perceived passer of a ball from defence is significantly behind all three of these. The
Mhm.
standout performer would be Belletti, actually, the
Okay.
Argentinian for that, completing 7.34 at 67%. Diamande is doing 5.87, so still decent amount at 80% completion rate. So when he pings it, he's very, very accurate with it and actually remarkably does it off both feet. So yeah, that would be an interesting weapon to have. Shot creating actions as a metric. Dean Howson, lauded centre back from the Premier League last season, was creating 1.6 shot creating actions per 90 last season, power only 0.62. All of these are above one. So that's shot creating actions is not necessarily the pass, but the two actions leading up to a shot.
Yeah.
So with the centre back, that might be a ball that hits a head that creates a shot. But all of these were sort of creating shots in games, which I think is a really useful weapon to be able to have if teams think they can figure you out. You've got multiple weapons, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I sort of feel this was a theory I've been coming up with since sort of the late last season, particularly when I went to see Villa play Fulham, and I was sat right at pitch side and Villa won 1-0, Tielemans header. But what I noticed was happening a lot is that Emi Martinez was getting the ball and knocking it. Not it was long. He was just basically knocking it over the Fulham press into John McGinn over and over again. McGinn was holding it up, winning it, and so it was sort of like just short of the halfway line. And I did
Mhm.
wonder whether football maybe is going to start going that way in the sense of teams now press so high,
Mhm.
everyone does it. Everyone plays at the back that at some point, actually, the long ball, not like an aimless punt forward, but a well aimed, ball, sort of mid range ball to the halfway line to somebody who can hold it up really well is actually going to become more and more fashionable. And I wonder if those three sorts of players that you've mentioned could be helpful for that. Because
Yeah,
they.
definitely. And like I say, you've seen that with goalkeeper last year about a goalkeeper outside their box hitting a 10.
Hmm.
It's quite a low flat pass. It isn't a lofty launched goal kick, is it? It's something quite flat. Like you say, more and more teams are pressing. I wonder if that has contributed a little bit to Power's drop off in stats last season to the one before. Where he is exceptional is progressive carries. So he's quite a big risk taker. He attempts at least one take on per match, which is statistically very high for the Premier League and across top five leagues in Europe. But completes them at like an 88% percentage as well, which is really good. None of these guys, I would say, will do that to the same extent, although they are all probably better athletes physically than Pau, so could potentially add that to their game. Um, yeah.
Hmm. And so, like, what else can you tell us about the three of them? Like, what do you think they'd bring to Villa?
Kind of how we started and kind of coming on to sort of tackling interceptions and that side of the game, they are all much more aggressive than what we have now, I would say. If you look at the way Villa play, it's a stat that we often like laugh at in the pub with some of the London Lions that you get sort of three-quarters of the way through the year and they say Consa's still not been dribbled past this season. And then when you look at it, in my opinion, it's partly because if you keep retreating towards the goal, nobody can dribble past you. It's a style of defence which is almost force the attacking team into making a mistake. And don't get me wrong, I think there is a place for that. And I guess the real art of defending is knowing when to do both.
Hmm.
When that ball is there to be won, going and winning it. I would say all three of these are much more front-footed, aggressive, reach the ball as it lands or get on the player's touch. Balerdi is plays in that Argentina side alongside Otamendi and Romero, so very much of that school of thought when he plays for Argentina. Diamande, rapid, so quick, so strong. I think just backs himself to even if the player's first touch is good and they go round him, he's quick enough to recover. If it's a mediumly bad touch, physically he'll win it. If it's a really bad touch, he'll just nick it straight off them. And I'd say Malick Thiaw's similar, albeit not quite as physically dominant as Diomande. I suppose the downside with all three of those, and for that reason, is there is an inherent element of risk of committing and getting drawn out of position because you think you can go and win something, and cleverer players either taking it money themselves or exchanging quick 1-2s. So I think what I like about the two younger lads is they have both shown some adeptness to sort of adapting. So have played in back threes, back fours, left centre back, right centre back, middle of a back three. I feel like they could, under the right tutelage, the professor, uh, learn that and kind of curtail their sort of mistakes, if that makes sense, or like errors leading to mistakes. Yeah.
And what kind of age range are they?
So real mix. I think part of the reason for Diomande and Thiaw being, well, I said Diamande's looking at like the 45 million mark, but he's a 21-year-old who's played 100 plus games for Sporting and has been statistically very good across all of that. Thiaw's a little bit older at 23. He's at AC Milan. From what I can see from Milan fans, they can't really understand why he's the one being left, like being allowed to leave out of that. They've got Tomori, good defender, obviously, and a couple of other decent centre backs, but Milan fans can't understand why that's the one that's being moved on, really. Belletti, a little bit older, so 26. I mean, still a really good age for a centre back with plenty of seasons in him, especially when compared to Mings, who's now 31. I suspect partly the reason why he's a bit cheaper. I don't think he's as mobile, as physically dominant, but yeah, I think all three could be good options. I think we're talking Malick Thiaw, it says 25 million euros to Como as the agreed deal, according to Fabrizio. Leonardo Belletti maybe more like 20 million. Diomande, the numbers being talked about there for Palace are more like 45. So it's a bit more of a stretch.
Right.
I think with that in mind, I think my choice would be Malick Thiaw. I think he kind of balances finance and promise with ready to play compared to the other two. My dream would be Diomande. In fact, my dream would probably be Joel Hatto, but I've completely excluded him. But yeah, I think Malick Thiaw is going to be the name I put forward today.
Hatto from Ajax. Yeah, very good player. I think he played against us, didn't he, as well in the Conference League? Yeah, Malick Thiaw. Okay, very interesting to watch. And Como, a very interesting team to keep an eye on as well. Spending big this summer. And I think if you're a footballer, why wouldn't you want to live on Lake Como playing for Cesc Fabregas? Right. Well, thanks, Adam, for that. That's our centre back covered.